Well, everybody, what's the crack? And welcome back to episode number 16 of the Inline G Flute Podcast with me, your host, Inline G. The video watchers can still see that we are in Belfast. For 2 weeks in a row, we are in sunny, beautiful Belfast. We're in the Sunflower Bar, my favourite pub potentially in the entire city, and they have graciously given us the upstairs room to record some brilliant episodes in. So if you watched last week's episode number 15, you would have seen my best friend Zach Troughton, and also a member of the Irish folk trio True, talking all things Belfast, local music, etc, etc. We had another guest, which I've just recorded an hour ago, and that is the Belfast-born flute player Aisling Agnew. Aisling is a Belfast-based flute player as well. She plays with the Hard Rain Soloist Ensemble, the Irish Memory Orchestra. She's done solo records. She's an incredible flute player, and I am very thankful that she agreed to appear on this podcast. So I'm going to leave you guys with that in a minute. Just before I get into the chat with Aisling, I want to do some housekeeping. So, as always, if you want to donate to this podcast, that is possible. The podcast is free. It'll always be free. I will never charge you guys for extra content. But if you want to help out, help keep the lights on in my apartment, and donate some money to the podcast, you can do so. If you think I watch Gareth's podcast every week, that's 4 hours of entertainment a month. If I saw him in a pub, I'd buy him a pint or a cup of coffee. You can do that. There's a link in the description here. If not, you can head over to my social media pages, particularly Instagram. In the link there, you can donate some money. I would recommend whatever a cup of coffee or a pint costs wherever you live, throw me that. Do that maximum once a month. Great. It helps out a lot right here. And the people who already have donated, it is hugely appreciated. It really is. So anyway, we're going to get into this week's episode where I'm chatting with Aisling. Enjoy. Have you been here before? Have you been to the pub before? Yeah.
Many times.
Have you gigged in the pub before?
No, I haven't, but my uncle plays traditional music and plays in a sort of old-timey group that play here on Friday nights. So
what's old-timey music? Like
kinda,
Irish trad? Yeah.
Well, not really, sort of slightly more like bluegrass influence now, you know, but he does do trad as well, so yeah, I'd pop in to see them play quite often.
Oh, cool. Do they play up here?
No, downstairs.
Okay. Oh, do they play in the sessions or do they do...
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So there's good sessions here on Thursdays and Fridays, so yeah.
Have you ever played in the session?
Yes, but not here.
Okay.
Yeah, more in the west of Ireland, yeah.
Really? Okay. Yeah, that was actually one thing I wanted to ask about straight away was, do you have a background in trad music?
No, not really. I am much more from a classical background.
Yeah.
And I would have been at a lot of trad music when I was a kid. Like I'd have been taken to different sessions and things to listen, but it wasn't really something I was interested in doing myself until I got much older, actually.
Okay.
I was quite late to it, and then I started getting more interested in wooden flutes and things, so it just kind of came through that, I think.
Really?
You know,
so,
then, yeah. Like
playing the wooden flute made you think, oh, maybe give the Irish flute a lash, or...?
I think it was probably around the same time. I was kind of interested in different types of flutes, like I was interested in Indian flute, and I sort of wanted to try things, and then when I started playing Irish music, I realised I was doing it so badly because it's kind of hard to come to it from a classical perspective.
It really is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you tend to do everything the wrong way around, you know, and it's, yeah. So I started trying to just teach myself to learn by ear, and that really shook up like how I was playing. But I found it harder to recreate it on a classical flute, so I got an Irish flute and started,
okay.
You know.
And can you play the Irish flute then? You feel comfortable on it?
Do I feel comfortable? Like, I mean, it's difficult to say. Like I play whistles and stuff as well, and I don't know, it's hard whenever you're like very comfortable on one flute because then you compare it to the other, you know.
And it gets frustrating then as well, I think.
Yeah, I'm much less comfortable, but I really like it, and it makes me play in a different way. So yeah, but it is definitely a late development.
Yeah, see, I find like I've picked up trying to play trad music recently, but yeah, you're coming from a classical point of view, and I'm like almost trying to read the ornamentation, trying to study it. There's a great book by the guy Philip Barnes. Mm-hmm. Have you seen it? Have you read it? Yeah, Irish Music on the Silver Flute. It was great, but I always feel like I'm doing it wrong.
Yeah.
I haven't quite picked it up yet.
Yeah.
I haven't really done it on trad flute. I still use my normal flute.
Yeah.
Normal, but I find it really difficult. I don't know.
It is difficult. I think the mechanism, everything about our concert flute is designed to make, you know, playing chromatic music easier. But actually when you're trying to play something really quick in the key of D, for instance, just playing a flute in that key is so much easier. It just flies under the fingers. And I think the problem for a classical player is a lot of the ornaments are too deliberate sounding. They're too sort of
exactly
slow in a way.
measured, or
Whereas whenever you can kind of fly through those a bit faster under your fingers, it's easier. So
I totally get that. Even when I play the whistle, it's so much easier. Playing a whistle, it's so much more fun as well. Like trying to play it on a C flute is an absolute nightmare. So actually, sorry, I'm reading my notes here as well. Tell me a bit about your background first of all. So how did you come to the flute? When did it start? Where are you from? All that kind of stuff.
I'm from Belfast. I came to the flute at the age of 7 because my older sister played the flute, and she had joined the 39th Old Boys with her friend Jennifer, who is Jennifer Sturgeon.
Ah, okay, I didn't know that, okay.
And so she was learning the flute through that, and my parents had kind of offered to me at that time, I think in school they were starting to say about kids taking up music, and they sort of offered different instruments, and I'd had a wee go at a couple of things. I think I managed to break some strings on a violin. I wasn't really interested in anything else except the flute. I'd heard my sister playing it, and I just thought it sounded so beautiful, and that's all I wanted to do basically. And I just took to it really quickly, so that was it. And
then did you go with the famous Billy Dunwoody then?
Yeah, I was taken down to have my first flute lesson with Billy, which was in the Ivy Bar. And,
really? It was in the pub, was it? Yeah,
it was.
Was that what he normally taught, or was that his?
No, it wasn't. It was just sometimes he would have gone before band practice. So I think I went down on a Wednesday, and met him there. And I mean, like, it was probably the only time, but it was just a wee tester really to see how it was. And then from that point onwards, lessons were kind of in his house, or sometimes he would come to me. But basically he handed me a flute. We did the first 3 notes, and he said, come to the band next week, and that was me.
And what were the lessons like with Billy? Like, I've studied it quite a lot. I did my thesis on flute bands and everything. I never got to meet him, obviously, but he's taught everybody. There's so many great flute players I've went through him as well. What were did he teach from like a flute band style, or did he teach from like the normal learner books or the French books, or?
I mean, he used a mixture of things. Like, I remember, like, at the start, how you would have made a sound, the articulation was from the flute band style, that kind of way of, tonguing.
Yeah, like the forward tongue.
Yeah.
Do you still do that?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, I still do that as well.
Yeah, I think it's great.
Do you use it all the time, or do you use it just for,
No, just mix and match. I actually think that's kind of one of the beauties of flute playing, that you can use a lot of articulation changes,
Yeah.
But things like that I think are from the flute band background. But he had, all of the Moist books and things like that as well, and we would have just gone through different things. He had a lot of he was always very inspired by opera or things, so we would sometimes play for a while in the lessons and then sit down and listen to something, or listen to somebody amazing. And I always felt like it was as much about imparting knowledge about the flute as it was about sharing a love of music. I know that sounds a bit cheesy, but that's
but it's totally true.
Happened, and anytime you progressed with a piece to a good point, he would take me in next door to play for his father, who was very elderly at the time, and just this sense of, it was always about sharing music or communicating music was very important. You didn't wait until you were like a teenager to get on the stage. He would run recitals, and so from childhood really, I was kind of made to stand up and play. Like, I found that kind of hard as a kid. I was quite shy. But
do you think that's something that served you well in the future?
Yeah, definitely. It gets you over that wee sense of stage fright, which I would have naturally had. Just kind of being made to do it before I was too young to question it. And just get up and play. And
do you remember what kind of things you would have played back then? Because I had a similar background, but it was always like the operatic fantasies. I was doing a lot of them as like an 11-year-old. Muddling my way through the Carmen fantasy and things like that. That was because all that operatic theme seemed to be a very flute band thing at the time. A lot of Rossini, a lot of.
I definitely feel like I was probably encouraged to play things that were slightly beyond me at times, but I think that was kind of his way of pushing you on, and dangling a carrot of like, you should, or you want to be able to play this piece. But there was a lot of repertoire which has sort of fallen out of fashion. I have all of these old pieces at home in my music that you just don't see or hear nowadays. We had a massive library of music in the 39th. I mean, huge.
Where is that library went, do you know?
The last I heard, it was in storage with Colin Fleming. He was sort of minding it for them. So I think that's still the case, but I'm not
I would love to see some of that as well. I'd love to get my hands on that.
Yeah, it's amazing. It was just enormous, and so we were always picking pieces from that. So yeah, I don't know, there was quite a few pieces. I remember one of the pieces that's kind of come back to me recently was a Fantasia on the theme by Martha, which is an old-fashioned opera, which again nobody really has heard of now, but it was very popular.
Is it one of those like Taffodil ones, or?
No, who's it by? Floto is the name of the person that composed the opera originally, and I remember learning it for a class of James Galway when I was about 11 or 12, and my nana, when I went to visit her, was singing along the theme with me, which is kind of a lasting memory. But like actually nowadays people don't really know that music, so there are things like that.
Well. Yeah. Is it that kind of music then? Is it the cheesy is maybe not the right word, but is it the cheesy kind of operatic themes, that kind of?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess we did a mixture. Yeah, I mean that one has a lasting memory for me. I think because I played it in James Galway's masterclass and stuff. But we would have done a lot of the sort of core French repertoire and the classical stuff. Mozart's.
Okay, so you're doing that. You're with Billy. Before you go off to college, did you get any other teachers? Any other?
I did. Yes. So unfortunately, Billy died when I was 15. So it was actually just the week that I did my grade 8. So the day I did that was the last time that I saw him, actually.
Oh wow! Okay.
In the Ivy Bar again, actually. So,
oh wow! Quite poetic then.
Yeah, because we went for a wee drink afterwards just to mark it. So it was the week after that he passed away, and then I was kind of a bit unsure what to do after that. I didn't really know, because he'd been kind of like a sort of grandfather figure for me, or a friend as well as a flute teacher, and it was quite hard to then go and just have flute lessons with somebody.
Especially when you're at that age of 15, you're sort of working things out as well. You're not sure if you're going to pursue it further.
Yeah. So I had lessons for a wee while with Justin Gillespie, who I don't know if you've come across Justin.
I don't know.
He had been in the 39th and he'd gone off to the Guildhall, and he'd moved back to Belfast at that stage. So I had some lessons with him, and then I kind of inevitably made the switch to Colin when I plucked up the courage, I guess, to do that. It was I'd had like regular enough interaction with Colin. He'd conducted the band, he'd done classes and things. And he would have been a fairly important figure, but a slightly intimidating one for me at that age. So it probably took me a little while to kind of work around. So I had a wee period after I turned 15 where I was a bit in between, and I didn't do much, and that's probably quite a crucial period normally for somebody when they're
It is, I suppose. I had a similar experience because I went to Colin when I was about 15, 16. I switched to Colin. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he scared the life out of me. I was terrified going to flute lessons every week. Even now, I'm 30 years old. If I see Colin, I still get a little bit like, oh, there he is. Yeah, he still has that. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because he had such a career and he went away so much. So there's this aura about him. Mm-hmm. And he is quite an intimidating guy as well. Yeah. I learned so much. I went through for a year of lessons. I learned so much in that year.
Yeah.
But he scared the shit out of me.
Yeah, he doesn't, cushion what he's saying, which is a great thing about him.
Exactly.
You know exactly what he thinks about something, but sometimes I suppose when your confidence is still forming, which for me at that stage it would have been, it's kind of a hard thing, I suppose, to deal with. So I guess I kind of really started more seriously with him when I was about 17 or so.
Okay.
And so I had a year or two with Colin before going to music college.
And that's it, you were off, yeah? And you went to, was it RSAMD first or Guildhall first?
It was RSAMD first,
okay. And why there? Just applied everywhere, see where you got in, or did you particularly fancy Glasgow?
Well, I was kind of a bit naive at the time. I didn't really know much about the music colleges. I was kind of a bit nervous about going away from home for the first time, and when I had done the Ulster Youth Orchestra course in the summer before I applied, there were several principals in the wind section that were studying there, so they were in their kind of final year at RSAMD, so I kind of had an in, I kind of knew people and they told me a lot about it. And when I went to audition, I met up with some of them and got invited to other classes and things, so I think I just felt kind of at home there. So it brought something out in me, and it was a very good step for me going away from Belfast. I mean, I found that quite a difficult thing at the time.
It is, yeah. Although Glasgow, I feel like there's a lot of similarities at least. But do you remember your audition for RSMD?
I do.
Yeah, how did it go?
Yeah,
do you remember being like really nervous? Or because I did an audition there, it was my first one, and I was terrified.
I was fine actually. I met quite an eccentric accompanist Mr. Langdon. We always called him Mr. Langdon, and he passed away a number of years ago there, but he was such a character. He was amazing. I mean, I can't even describe him to you. He was just an absolute one-of-a-kind person.
Okay. Scottish fellow?
Was he Scottish? He had quite a distinctive English accent, but I'm not actually sure if he was Scottish or not. And he sort of bundled into my room and said, "What tempo is this?" And started playing. And I don't know, I was just a whirlwind of something.
Yeah, but sometimes that can help, can't it? Just takes the sting out of it.
Yeah, I was just not focused on myself.
Exactly.
There was this character I was kind of dealing with. So yeah, I played the Bach C major and the
you really do remember
sonata.
that,
Yeah,
nice. Okay.
I remember it completely. And yeah, I felt I played really well. And actually, do you know, I always felt, looking back, that when I had auditioned in one of the London colleges, that I had the opposite feeling of comfort. I felt so outside of myself in that environment. And I think it was just part of me growing into myself, feeling like I belonged anywhere. I think my first experience of that, and it feeling so alien to my upbringing here, that I couldn't quite measure. And it does sometimes impact like how you play. You sometimes feel...
Do you reckon,
Well, for me, I think you need to kind of own your own space to play well. So
I totally agree with that, yeah. How did you find living in Glasgow then?
I loved it. I
have a real soft spot for Glasgow, I really do.
Oh, Glasgow, I mean, it's a brilliant place.
Yeah, I adore it.
I made friends kind of instantly in Glasgow, and I loved the city, and I got like a part-time job on a Saturday working in a cafe, and I kind of loved that as well, for like the banter as well. Do you know, like outside of music college, there's a whole world of people that I got to dip into as well, and it was great.
I think that's super important as well, is when you're studying at music college, it can be such an intimidating place and so scary, and especially like maybe for yourself as well, but for me, I felt like I'd loved music until I went to college, and then I got there and suddenly you're surrounded by it. You're at the high level, and it was good for me to have friends outside college, get away from it a little bit of time. We watch a football match, but just get outside music, because it was a lot.
There's a lot, and there's no, well, there wasn't anyway, like any sort of students' union or any activities. Like I'd been doing other things for fun, I guess, before I left, but there was none of that, so suddenly it's just music all the time, which is generally what you're programmed and wanting to do, but you do need some escapism,
some kind of escape,
for your sanity, and just for a kind of more measured view of the world as well.
Yeah, that's probably true as well.
It's a bit tunnel vision sometimes in that kind of environment. So yeah, I loved it, and I got very fortunate with my teachers there. I'd had Richard Blake in my first year, who's an amazing player, and then I switched to David Nicholson, who I had for 3 years, and that was
He's
really
incredible from what I've heard. I've heard his playing. I've never actually met him or studied with him, but I've heard his playing.
He was
is he in Australia now, or did he go to Australia for a while?
David Nicholson? No, he passed away also,
recently.
How many years ago is that now? It would be,
they came across him in my studies, but I can't remember.
It's actually about 13 years ago.
Oh really? Wow.
Yeah.
I remember it being a thing.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't go to Australia to play at any point, did he? No.
I don't think so.
I feel like I might have read about going to, what is it, I can't remember now, but one of the Australian something orchestras anyway. But it might be wrong.
He was replaced in the Scottish Chamber Orchestra by an Australian player.
Maybe that's
so that
what
could
it
have been
is.
the connection. So the person that
might be it,
followed him was from Australia, but
that's close enough.
Yeah,
that might be right.
Just to make you feel better.
Yeah, you can see the level of research that goes into this podcast. It's incredibly professional. Okay, so you're at Guildhall. You're at RSAMD, and you went to Guildhall after. Yeah. Why Guildhall? Why London?
I was just ready for a change, and I had some classes with Sarah Newbold.
Oh, you were with Sarah Newbold?
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
So basically around my 3rd or 4th year, there were a couple of jobs open in Glasgow at the time, and a lot of visiting flute players were coming on trial, and so one of those positions had been David's job in the chamber orchestra, and I think SNO had a job open for a while, but we had a good sort of woodwind department. They kind of, at the time, they were trying to get as many people in for classes as they could, so that those couple of years we actually had like visiting classes every couple of weeks from people, and it was amazing. And Sarah Newbold came a couple of times, and then I organised some extra lessons because I found her so great to study with. With her, and it was really that kind of made me think about Guildhall. Up until that point, I had been thinking that I wanted to go elsewhere in Europe.
Oh really?
To study.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to do something different. I was actually looking at some places in Germany, at that point.
Oh, wow.
And I wasn't really thinking about London. I think, as I mentioned, like my experience auditioning in London before hadn't really been a great one. Just my own perspective of it, or how I felt about it. But I hadn't actually auditioned at Guildhall the first time around, so I think whenever I came to audition there, and I found it felt like a really progressive, open-minded institution and really kind of forward-thinking. It felt like the place for me. Like I was already kind of getting into contemporary music and stuff like that at the time.
Yeah,
and
I was going to ask you a lot about that as well,
you know, doing a lot of interesting things. So yeah, that kind of pushed me, and yes.
Would Ian Clark have been teaching there already at that time? Yeah, okay, so yeah, if you're into contemporary music, obviously having Ian Clark knocking about.
It was, and I was kind of, like I said, I'd had the lessons with Sarah. I knew that was going to be great, and I had listened to Sam Coles quite a lot. I hadn't met him yet, but I'd been listening, and he was a visiting teacher, and he ended up being a quite important teacher for me that year as well. Oh,
did you study with Sam Coles as well? Wow, you got a hell of a pedigree. I didn't know all that. Wow. How did you find studying with Sam?
I loved it. Yeah.
He's incredible as a player. He plays does he play a Louis Lott flute as well, or he did for a long time? Yeah.
He also, actually, I think it's that Louis Lott had belonged to David Nicholson.
Oh really?
Yeah, that's who he'd bought it off, so there was a nice wee connection there. But
that's beautiful.
Sam was brilliant. Sam was quite intensive to study with, you know. I don't know if it was because at the time he was still playing in the orchestra in Bordeaux, and he would come over for a few days in London and teach.
What a life,
and then sometimes, so the lessons might have been, you know, like not like an hour a week or something. It might have been like just a few hours at a time or something. And he would kind of be a bit more in the French tradition. You know, he would sort of allow you to stay on if there was somebody having a lesson after and just listen. That sort of thing kind of happened more, and I found that really great learning curve, you know, actually just watch, and there were other really great players studying with him at the time outside of Guildhall as well, so it was really interesting, and he was kind of all invested. I think that's the thing that made the difference. And the teachers that I've had the most impact on me have been people that were just so invested in you as a person, your development, not just your actual flute playing, you know, really interested in what you have to say. So there's people that kind of, the clock will go round and they teach you what you need to know,
and then they'll stick a little bit.
But yeah, he wasn't like that, you know, so
that's really interesting as well. I'm just curious, how much of your playing now do you think has came from those teachers? Do you reckon you can still pinpoint and say, oh, that's a bit of Sam there, that's a bit of Sarah, or has it became a bit of a mishmash at this point?
I don't know. I like little things like taglines stick in your head that people have said.
You still get that,
totally, and I love, you know, I mean, I play a lot now from iPads and things, and I love actually just lifting out old books and I see people's writing on it. It's partly why I keep a lot of things.
Beautiful,
you know?
Yeah, it is.
So I don't know if it's like a conscious effort on my part to remember the things that people have said, but I find myself bringing it out in lessons for people, and I also have learnt a lot from teaching that I wouldn't recommend as well. Like I've had things in lessons where I think I'm not going to do that, you know, and I would sort of say that to students that are, you know, upcoming as well. Okay, well, this was said to me, but let's not do that because I've kind of learned from it that way, you know. But I don't know how much of it you could see in somebody's playing, because from my perspective we're all individuals and we all play the way we're going to play.
Very true, yeah.
But I think it does feed into your how you get there, I suppose, you know. Yeah,
but there is times when I'm playing, I'll go, oh yeah, especially Colin, there's certain things in my playing that I go, yeah, that's pure Colin. This came straight from there. I don't know if it's not, I'm not copying him per se, but it's more, as you said, there's a tagline or something, there's a bell going off my head going, oh, I can hear Colin's voice reminding me about something. I find that fascinating. I also love like tracing back my teachers and their teachers and their teachers' teachers and feeling part of this tradition. But obviously for you then, you've got Sam Coles, who studied with, was he with Gaston Crunel, I think, in Paris? And then further back, so you got everyone there.
Yeah, I know. And David had obviously studied with everybody as well, you know, so it's nice to have that.
Oh man, actually I have to ask, James Galway, so first encounter with him was when you were 11, you said?
No, I had encounters before. James Galway had been always very generous with his time, and he came over to Belfast with the 39th, you know, and he'd like often drop in and do little classes. The one when I was about 12 was his big masterclass that he ran every year, but for 1 year he ran it in Dublin, whereas it's always usually held in Switzerland. But so that was kind of a big deal because there were a lot of professional flute players there. But no, he would kind of come and pop up. My first interaction. I remember kind of clearly because I was just playing my scales for Billy, and his phone rang and he just said, just keep practicing there, and I was playing away, and he's chatting away, and then he says, come on here, talk to somebody who's on the phone. And I was only like 8 or 9 or something, and I had a chat with him basically, and I didn't know who he was.
Okay, you didn't know at that point.
No,
okay.
I hadn't a clue. Like
because that time you would have been at like Galway Mania as well. Like it would have been.
I know, I was just too young.
Yeah.
Like I was just didn't know anything at that point, and he told me, you know, the scales were sounding good and I should really keep practicing them, and that I could come over sometime and play for him in Switzerland. And I was like, oh, that's all lovely, it was really nice. So I got in the car after and told my dad, who nearly had a heart attack, you know, this sudden interaction was kind of amazing. But no, he would have dropped in with the 39th, and we had opportunities to play for him. That's not to say that it was like casual, it was always a big thing. Like
I was just about to ask
after
that
point, you know, I would have gone to his concerts and I would have become more aware of his reputation and seen him play and see how amazing he was. And and he was quite intimidating in certain situations. You know, he would have insisted that everybody played by memory when they played for him, and some people found that difficult. I was always okay with it, I think, but you know,
obviously so,
he would have kind of been quite harsh on people that maybe hadn't prepared or had tried to get away without doing that. And it was kind of intense as well, but like really inspiring.
Yeah, I can get that. Do you remember like buying any records back then of Jimmy Galway, or?
I mean, I have all the records now, but like, do you remember buying them?
No, at that age, like I remember like that was probably the first flute record. One of the first flute records I would have bought would have been James Galway, just because of you're in Belfast and everyone's talking about him and you just feel like you have to be involved in it. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure my sister, or like there would have been ones in the house, you know, but I don't know. Like I had access to so much music to listen to through Billy. I don't remember having to sort of go out and seek it out. Yeah, he would have just, like, that would have been fairly common, that we would have listened to music in the lesson, then he would have loaned me some tapes to take home. And that old it was tapes, you know, but like he would have just given that and I would have had a listen and brought them back the next week. And,
well, one of the questions I was dying to ask you is, do you remember your first flute record, the first one you bought, or the first one featuring flute? Do you have an image of going, or the first one you remember even listening to, going, oh?
I mean, it's bound to be him. I actually just can't remember.
Really? Okay.
I can't remember the flute. I remember the first classical CD that I ever got.
What was that?
It was the Tchaikovsky Romeo and Juliet overture, and other overtures, but I was learning that one for the National Youth Orchestra at the time, and I think I was about 12, and I remember listening to it and it just like blew my mind. Actually, I was just...
Do you remember who the orchestra was?
On that CD?
Yeah.
I don't, but I could show you the cover. It's like imprinted in my brain, you know.
So you had a physical copy of it as well then?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember your first non-classical album?
Yeah, it was the Hits Tape 7.
Like, that's what I call music, that one? No.
A version, so the Hits was another version of...
So like, just like the pop songs of the year?
Like, the pop songs of the year. It had like the Jackson 5 and... Yeah.
Okay, I gotta look that up and find out what's on that.
It's a cracker, it's got great songs in it. I found it in vinyl form after, and I have that copy now as well.
You still have it? Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Do you remember Annie's song coming out?
Yeah.
James, okay. What was that like?
I don't know if I remember it coming out. I just remember it being played all the time. It was sort of everywhere.
Because I was a little bit too young to really remember it coming out, but...
When did it come out?
I think it was 94, I want to say.
Okay.
Did an episode of this recently. I think it was 94. It might have been a bit earlier. I know that he was just above the Rolling Stones in the charts. The Stones got 4th that year. He got to number 3, and I think number 1. No, it would have been way earlier because number 1 was.
I was going to say
Grease.
I thought it was the 70s.
No, it must have been the 70s. Yeah, number 1 was Grease.
Yeah, so it kind of predates me, but it was still like a massive piece. You know, everybody was playing it, and and that's kind of like, you know, as soon as you played that, people mentioned James Galway. You know, it was kind of
straight away,
part. Or people would ask you to play it, like, you know, when I was doing recitals for things for years, it would have been like a request, can you do any song,
mad,
you know? But actually, like, I still really love it. It's a gorgeous tune.
When was the last time you played it?
Not that long ago, because because like so my daughter has started the flute and she's going through the wee Abracadabra book at the moment.
Oh yeah.
And it's in there, you know, and I was telling her she hasn't quite conquered any song yet, but you know, I was talking to her about it, so I played it for her, and
that's it.
I still love it.
Would you schedule it in a program? Would you ever play it in a concert these days?
I have never played it in a professional program.
Seriously?
Yeah, no, I
Wow,
haven't.
okay.
But you've planted a seed now, so maybe I will.
Oh, it's a nice wee throwback to throw that one in, yeah. I used to get asked about it all the time. It kind of got on my nerves as well when I was a kid because I didn't really know what it was, but I played it so many times it drove me mad.
Yeah.
But yeah, on records then, I think I've got here, you made your first record in 2006.
Okay, I can't actually remember the dates as well as you have researched, but yes.
No, it's just the level of professionalism with this podcast. Yeah, I've got it all listed out, don't worry.
Great, yeah.
I've got it all listed out. I actually listened to it recently, so it's the Recital album. Yeah, I want to ask you about that because you have another album out later. They're both on Spotify, and there's a lot of parallels between the two. But the first one came out in 2006. There is the Bach E minor album is on it, isn't it? Carmen Fantasy as well, arrangement for guitar.
Yeah.
That's quite a brave program. Do you remember like the process of choosing the repertoire for that? Why you chose the rep?
Yeah, I was doing a lot of flute and guitar concerts at the time. We had formed a duo at college. And when I left college, it started building up quite a sort of busy career, I suppose, doing that, and had been touring quite a lot. And it felt to me at the time, when I was back living in Scotland then, that there were a lot of opportunities to perform for chamber music series or festivals that featured chamber music, but they hadn't kind of embraced much outside of the string quartet at that point. Okay. So it was still sort of brave new ground to feature, a different type of ensemble, and it kind of, I don't know, it felt at the time like it was embraced elsewhere in the world a little bit more easily, but that maybe the UK was still quite conservative about what it regarded chamber music as. So, I mean, yeah, it sounds a bit mad now, but that's nearly 20 years ago, and I guess it was, you were trying to break in, and a lot of places that I sent proposals to didn't have any kind of tradition with that at all. So I suppose at the time we were trying to do something that would have a wide appeal and quite a broad range of repertoire, and just repertoire that we really liked. I mean, it did mean that I ended up playing the Carmen Fantasy more times than I can possibly tell you.
Yeah, and with guitar as well, that's incredible.
Yeah, it's great. It works really well with guitar because it's a more Spanish instrument.
Yeah,
so
true.
I actually then felt on occasion when I had to play it with piano, it felt a bit stifled to me, like slightly too classical.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because I guess there's more techniques you can do in the guitar that make it sound Spanishy, and you can kind of play off that a bit.
Give it a bit more freedom then, maybe in that sense. That's really interesting.
So yeah, I mean, I suppose the title even just came from that, the recital. It was kind of a version of a recital that we would typically have given at the time. Yeah, okay.
Have you listened to the album recently? Do you ever go back and listen to your own stuff? Do you listen to your own stuff at all?
Not often. No.
Okay.
No.
So you haven't listened to that record in a long time then, though?
I don't think so. I think I've probably listened to... Do you know what track I really love from that record is the Gentle Dreams one by Dave Heath. And I remember recording that because, I mean, obviously when you're recording like Bach and Carmen, you're kind of aware that like all the flute players that are going to listen to this know those pieces in depth, right? So I think I was probably quite careful about playing those. I suppose that's one thing I think of that recording is it's probably slightly careful, but it's the stage I was at. I was trying to make sure everything was correct. It's maybe not the most brave version of how I would play those things, but I'm still largely quite proud of it. But the Gentle Dreams, I remember we were about to play that in the recording session, and I think we said to the engineer, oh, don't hit record yet, we just need to have a quick run through this before we do it. And he said, I'll just leave it running just in case. And we played it, and it was just the version.
There you are. See, I love that.
And that's really nice. And it was just, that was it, and it was perfect. And I really love the piece, and that was our own arrangement of the piece as well, because it was originally for flute and piano. So
there you are. Yeah, you're saying as well about like the pressure of playing, not pressure, but the idea that when you play Bach, when you play Mozart, these things, that it's been done so many times, there's a lot of rules. We've talked about this before, but that's one of the things I love about contemporary music, is that you don't have those constraints. And I had to find some kind of way of getting all the contemporary music, contemporary music, obviously you're a bit of a specialist. So when did that start?
At music college, because I befriended composers who asked me to play music, and that was kind of the start of it for me. And then suddenly I was encountering music that was much harder than other stuff, but that I was interested in. And I just found that really exciting.
Were you interested straight away? Like you found it
Yeah.
okay straight away? Yeah, because I
Yeah.
find a lot of people need to get a bit of a gateway drug into it in some kind of way and ease themselves into it.
Yeah, I mean, I think if there's a gateway drug, it's just finding some relevance to you. So for me to know people that were writing music, that
Yeah.
felt relevant to me because you're part of the process of creating music.
That's
as
really
it is,
interesting,
okay?
yeah.
And I sometimes, I was trying to think, like, what are other things that would get you into it? Like minimalist music was something that would have got me into it,
Yeah.
you know. It's probably slightly more at the accessible end sometimes, but it also like relates to other types of music that we, you know,
Yeah, I would have
generally
found that as well,
you
yeah.
know. But I think, yeah, just that very real, being part of the process and seeing what people
That's super
wanted to do
interesting, yeah.
and how, and problem solving, I suppose, for me was interesting, you know, not just, I don't know, you know, when you go to lessons, it's like, here's how you play a flute, but for me to be part of the question, how do we work around this, how am I going to do this, and me trying to figure that out myself was like really,
Oh yeah.
I don't know, it just kind of inspired me, I suppose, and it pushed me a lot into the music. And I find sometimes with contemporary music that sometimes if you come to it with the most recent, it has more relevance because it's kind of, it's maybe responding to what's happening in the world now,
Yeah.
or to where our instrument is at right now, or how people see our
That's
instrument.
also, yeah.
Or it's just, you know, with the received information that we all have of all the types of music, you know, that have been around. Whereas sometimes if people try and get into it with the sort of earlier 20th century stuff, that's kind of a pushback from stuff before, and it almost bears no relevance to where we're at now, you know. And it's, I find that sometimes harder to sort of get into than stuff that's being written right
That's
now,
really
you know. So
interesting as
I
well.
kind of I love just actually listening to a lot of stuff that's very current as
Okay.
well, you know, and seeing what there is. But
The only issue I find, not issue, the only thing I find difficult about listening to very current music is I'm not sure where to start, first of all, and there's no degree of, like, I wouldn't say degree of quality, but I don't know if it's good or not yet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't have someone else's opinion, that sounds terrible to say, but sometimes, you know, when you're listening to Mozart, you know, if I don't like a piece of Mozart, I go, well, it's Mozart. There's something in there you have to find, because...
Well, you see, I kind of don't, because I just feel like if I don't like something for whatever reason, I feel like that's okay. Like, there's still crap Mozart. He still wrote music that wasn't... I mean, it'll be constructed in a way that is appealing, but it's kind of a budget version of him. It doesn't stand up to other stuff
That much
he
I
did.
agree with, yeah, okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Like, it's still superbly crafted, but that doesn't mean that it's incredible, and I think it's okay to say that, or to have that internal reaction to something.
Do you know, actually, one example of that, I have to say, the Mozart Flute Concerto, the first 3 bars of it, of the G major concerto, I think it's terribly written. I've never liked that.
Okay.
But I have to like it. I'm a flute player, you have to find it. No.
Well, you have to find a way, because you have to play it, right?
Yeah.
That's your job, to find a way around it. But, like, you know, the flute quartets, for example, there's 3 of them that are, they're fine. Like, and because of the nature of 18th century music, it doesn't hurt the ears. It's just fine. But I find it a wee bit on the verge of wallpaper music. It doesn't engage me at all, whereas the D major quartet is
It's
just
stunning. Yeah,
right?
it's something else.
Start to finish, just one of the best pieces. So, like, I feel like it's okay to have a reaction to different types of music, and I think that's the thing. I feel like sometimes in music we're given the expectation that we should like something. I don't feel like it matters in a way. If I don't like something, I still engage with it. It still stimulates
Which is a different thing,
me.
yeah.
And I think sometimes when I'm listening to, like, I would listen to Radio 3 quite a lot, and some of their nighttime program would have, like, quite a bit of new music on it.
Okay.
And I just have a very just honest reaction to it, you know.
That's a very pure reaction as well. Yeah, it'd be nice to get rid of that. Yeah, like for me, I mean, personally, to get rid of, like, my stereotypes and my ideas around music. Sometimes I'm a bit weighed down by that, I feel. Like, I remember once I had a lesson in Paris with a teacher, and I was playing one of the Bach sonatas, and, like, obviously has a dramatic flourish. She took her pencil and scrawled through the name Bach. I was like, right, forget it's Bach, just play it.
Yeah.
And it does totally change your attitude to it. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, it's not Bach anymore. It's not this thing of Johann Sebastian Bach and the king of music. It's a tune.
Yeah, and I think that allows you to take ownership of the thing, which I think is a
Potentially
massively
it's that,
important thing. I think if you're the person standing up playing, you have to have ownership over what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, you have to feel like, I mean, first of all, I think you have to feel like you know it that well.
Yeah.
But secondly, for you to convey it to somebody else, it has to feel like it's coming from you. and sometimes if you hold people almost in too much reverence, it stops you from doing that, you know, so it kind of stilts you a little bit. When you said about, like, I don't know if it's good or not yet, I think that's something that interests me as well, because I think sometimes over the course of time people get remembered for things not because it's good at times, you know, like look at how many women composers have been overlooked through the course of history, okay? And sometimes it's like there's political reasons why certain things are remembered or seen as good or have a lasting impression. So I don't know, I suppose I try not to get too hung up. There's obviously precedent for things that stand the test of time because there's a lot in there. But yeah, I wouldn't get too hung up on that.
No, that's very true, probably. I don't know why I think like that. Sometimes, the influence of it sometimes just weighs in on me. The influence of like being Mozart, being Bach, but I probably should just judge it more for what it is itself. With contemporary music, I find that, I wouldn't say difficult. I've always enjoyed playing contemporary music, and the second, to be honest, I don't think I've ever played a piece of music that I didn't like after I played it. As soon as I play it, I get it. That's it. I enjoy the process of being part of the music, of playing it, and then it's fine. But listening to it, I don't know if I would listen to a lot of contemporary music that I haven't played, or if I'm going to listen to it, I would go dig out the flute part and follow along. That gives me a bit more relation to it.
I probably listen to it more live than I do sitting on records.
Of course,
because I find the experience of it live is something that's part of it. So that does bring it to life for me. And I was thinking about this yesterday. I was thinking like there's sometimes a story behind things, and I often think that we maybe construct a story that isn't there. You know, the composers maybe have a different perspective, but that's almost okay. As the person telling the story in the music, I think it's okay if you create your own narrative at times. So if that kind of helps you. And I have done quite a lot of concerts over the years in different chamber groups where it was for a fairly traditional audience, and I can't resist playing contemporary music in that, because I feel really conflicted about turning up somewhere and just playing loads of music by dead people, and I love all of that music. I absolutely love it. It really excites me, but I feel like we have a kind of responsibility to music now to share that as well. So I would have always done that, and not in a tokenistic way, but you'd be surprised how people engage with it differently. And in a last tour I did earlier this year of underrepresented composers, like some of the more challenging pieces that we played, I would think more challenging for the audience, I mean, like, were the ones that they responded to the most. You know, I was kind of almost taken aback. I thought they might have pushed
in terms
them
of a positive response.
You know, I sort of thought, okay, we're pushing our luck with this one, it might sort of alienate some people, and they were the pieces sometimes that like people wrote to us about afterwards. So
that's super interesting. That's something I was dying to ask you about, because obviously you played with the Harmonium Ensemble, the Harmonium Soloist Ensemble, sorry. They've been going for just over 10 years, I think.
That's right.
Now, obviously it's incredible to have contemporary music in Belfast, but I remember that group starting up and thinking, there's no way Belfast is ready for contemporary music. What were the challenges at the start of getting contemporary music into Belfast?
I mean, luckily for me at that point, I was just the flute player, so I wasn't responsible for those challenges at the time. But I would say it was really probably about shaking up the awareness, the consciousness of the group, you know. And I think whilst there was a community of composers here, they were all having to seek opportunities elsewhere. So there was a real buzz actually at the start of people being able to get their music played here. You know, we've played an incredible amount of local composers' music. But we kind of found that like actually our audience quite quickly drew from different sort of circles. You know, it wasn't necessarily just a traditional music audience. There were quite a lot of people that would have come in through like the visual arts or dance.
Really?
Or things. And I think sometimes the other art forms are generally a bit better at embracing contemporary, you know, in general. And you know, some of the things that we would have done over the years where we collaborated outside of music kind of brought in a lot of different people. So yeah, there has become like a kind of a cult following, like a sort of regular.
It's really taken off at the minute. It's incredible. I'm such a fan of it. I love contemporary music, and to see it do so well in Belfast it's great.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, like any other city of our size would have this by nature, you know. It's kind of an important thing. I suppose what I would like to see is just increased awareness and more pride in it, because I feel very proud of the music that gets created here. Even the composers that aren't living here anymore, I feel very proud that we have produced composers that are elsewhere doing their thing, and I feel like it's important for us to represent and for people here also just to be aware of that. Like,
yeah, I can totally get that. Any highlights so far from the
with
last
Hard
10?
Rain?
Yeah, with Hard Rain.
Yeah, the Piero Lunaire that we've done a couple of times has been a highlight.
You did one of them recently as well.
Yeah. The one that we recorded last year was a real highlight. I say last year, it was actually only just
was this year,
earlier this year. A lot's happened since then, but it was really incredible because
I love that piece. I adore that piece.
Oh yeah, I know. That's one of the things that I think stands the test of time, because like we toured that piece before, and yet I felt like I was learning it all over again. There's just so much in it. Yeah. You know, so you're constantly stimulated even when you've played it like numerous times, and it's very challenging, but there's
a lot going on for the flute in it as well, isn't there?
Yeah, it's great. You kind of have to be multiple things, you know, but it's brilliant. So that was a highlight, and I loved our Steve Reich double sextet that we did with Maiden Voyage Dance, particularly when we did it with the dance company. It was really incredible. And the visual arts collaborations we've done, I've really enjoyed those. We had a couple of like one at the School of Art, and they were creating art in response to Morton Feldman. I don't know if you listen to his music, but
I know of it.
I recommend it sometimes for, like, you know, in a bath or something, or quiet. I mean, you really need to chill. Like, it's beautiful. But yeah, we had a beautiful concert there. So yeah, we've done a lot of cool things.
And you're just announcing the schedule for next year?
Yes.
Is that released? Is that public information yet?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not an exclusive then? No.
Sorry.
Do you wanna? What's on the menu for this year? I've already read.
You know.
I know a bit. Yeah.
So. I forgot to mention another highlight. It was like going to Chile. How could you not mention?
Oh, you went to Chile? That's right. Yeah.
I mean, that was amazing. But
how did that come about? How did you get over to Chile?
We had given a concert at New Music Dublin. We've performed there a couple of times, and hopefully will again next year. And they have a sort of networking event around that, and so there are basically just different people in the audience there, and one of the people runs that festival in Chile, and really enjoyed the concert, so invited. And we're hoping to go back there in 2025.
That is mental.
They're organising that. So
had you played in Chile before?
No, I had been elsewhere in South America actually, but never to Chile, and it's so beautiful. It was incredible. So yeah,
that is a lot of fun as well.
That was amazing. But yeah, on to this season. This season, sadly, no South American ventures this particular season, but lots of cool stuff. So we have our launch on the 26th of October.
Yeah, that's next week. Well, no, not next week when this podcast comes out. Sorry, by this point it'll probably already be done.
Sorry, do you want me to change?
Yeah, we can say how we talked about it. How did it go?
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, of course it was. I was there as well. It was incredible. No, go ahead. So 26th of October. What's the launch then?
So the launch is. I called it a concert of connections. I kind of wanted to keep connections with people that we've worked with before. So our featured composer this year is Greg Caffrey. So he's from Belfast, and he, up until this point, had been artistic director. He founded the Ensemble, but he recently turned 60, and we kind of wanted to celebrate him and play some of his music. So we're playing a piece by him. Yeah, I know, it's great. And he was always quite reserved about programming his own music. I mean, it did appear, and he wrote several pieces for us, but it's a lot easier to program somebody else's music than your own, isn't it? So we have a piece that he'd written in our first year, and then a brand new commission by Raymond Dean, who's a very important Irish composer who has written a piece dedicated to Greg as well. So that's kind of either end of the concert, you know, which is nice. And then we have some younger composers coming through.
Yeah, I saw you guys had a grant or scholarships as well offered to younger composers.
Yeah, we do a couple of things. So we're supported by PRS Foundation, and their scheme allows us to commission 3 upcoming composers.
That's incredible,
yeah, it's really amazing. So they have all just completed their pieces, those 3 composers. They'll be performed in January. So our January concert is called Ink Still Wet, because it's basically all brand new music. So there's 8 world premieres in that concert, which is kind of crazy. So there's that, and we also help run the Peter Rosser event. So Peter Rosser was a composer who was based here, who sadly passed away, and his legacy is part of his legacy is this prize that we've run. So we will have submissions currently being written for that. So yeah, they'll all get premiered. But yeah, there's quite a lot of big events. I suppose in my head the December event, which is all based on things around the natural world, is really appealing. And then our International Women's Day, which is all music featuring electronics. That's going to be in the Sonic Lab in March. And then at the end we have 2 concerts in galleries, so I'm kind of excited about that because
which galleries?
I just love galleries. So Hugh Lane Gallery in Dublin, which is a beautiful space,
I've never been.
And you should, it's incredible. And in Ulster Museum, which is just one of my favourite places in
Ulster
Belfast.
Museum's great, it is great. I'm a big fan of it as well.
Oh, I can't get enough of it.
I think I sang there once with school choir.
Did you?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't do much singing anymore.
Yeah.
But I did at that time. It was a great space for making music as well. No, I'm not going to come along and sing. I'll spare you that.
Yeah. Well, we thought, we're going to make the most of being in there that day. So we have our evening concert, but we're going to do a sort of residency through the day, and basically different people from the ensemble will pop up in different spaces around the gallery
cool.
at different times and play little solos, and I feel like that's kind of a nice way for us to engage with more people in a different way.
Are you playing a solo?
Yeah.
What have you got? Can you tell us?
I can tell you. I actually have, I have these brand new pieces that have just been written for me by Jane O'Leary.
Okay.
Who, I don't know if you know Jane, but she's a great composer. She's Irish American, and she's written these 3 solo pieces all based on winged creatures.
Okay.
So there's a bee, which is currently being written, and a butterfly, and I was thinking of airing those on this particular occasion.
Okay. So like little short movements for each one, or?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
wow.
There's 3 short pieces. So
have you got to see the sheet music for any of them yet?
Yeah, I have 2 of them. So they're beautiful. I've played some other works by Jane before. Well, yeah, but
when you say winged creature, it means I'm thinking, it's going to be high, it's going to be fast, it's going to be.
There's a bit of that, but I mean, I don't know. Jane has a very natural, organic way of writing for the flute. I've played her music quite a few times, and uses any techniques in a really, organic way. It feels very natural. You sometimes have pieces that are written by non-flute players that feel a bit more like you have to work around a wee bit more. But
I've had that a few times. Yeah.
No, and I was a little bit part of the process. Like, she sent the first piece to me just after it had been written for some feedback. So there was a bit of that, and that's part of the fun thing as well about contemporary music. You are part of that.
I totally agree with that. I love that. Yeah. Okay, I have to ask it because we haven't got a huge amount of time left, but I have to ask about the Irish Memory Orchestra as well.
Okay.
That is a fascinating thing. Can you just tell everybody what the Irish Memory Orchestra is and what you do with them?
Yeah, so this was set up by Dave Flynn, the composer and guitarist, and basically initially it was sort of mostly traditional musicians and some classical, but it kind of branched out a bit because some of the people playing were also working in jazz and things, and just different styles of music. So we have music primarily based on traditional music. Do you need me to stop my phone? I've just realised it's
don't worry.
Sorry.
The professionalism of this podcast, it's fine. We're used to this kind of stuff here.
It's primarily music based on like traditional Irish music, but in larger constructs, so symphonies or concertos based around that. And then we've done different collaborations with sort of celebrities of Irish music, I guess. Like
give us a few, drop a few names.
We did some concerts with Martin Hayes and also with Marcin O'Connor. So really great. But
and you're playing with them again this year, You've got something coming up soon, haven't you?
On Saturday actually, I have a concert, so there's a quartet of us are doing that. We've done a few things last year. There were some of us involved in a children's music festival just outside Dublin, so we did some stuff with that earlier this year again, and then we had a kind of 10th season celebration concert at the National Concert Hall.
They're 10 years old as well?
Yes.
So around the same time as Hard Rain.
I know, it's kind of funny. Both
Did you play with them from the start as well?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that must have been a busy year for you back then.
It was, but I had been living away and doing a lot of things away, and I was always very keen to get back home, and having these opportunities that were just massively appealing for me musically were brilliant, for quite a bit I was kind of back and forth, and then finally moved home a few years ago basically, but it's, I suppose the clue is in the name, Irish Memory Orchestra. It's primarily Irish music and play by memory. Yeah,
which is so impressive for ensembles of that size to play for memory. Yeah,
it's tough, like especially when you have bigger pieces, and especially when you're not necessarily playing the tune in a piece. It's one thing to remember a melody, but another thing when you're playing inner parts and things. But Yeah, I like before I did it, I would have traditionally played recitals by memory. You know,
yeah, we've talked. Yeah, you said earlier, so
it wasn't really.
It's something you're kind of used to. Yeah.
Yeah, although it does take a bit of work. Like it does take time.
Yeah, I can understand doing a recital from memory, but playing like a second flute part, for example, or something with harmony parts, I suppose that would be very difficult. I think
it is. It is a bit difficult, but you know the thing that I realised at the very first concert, I remember the feeling of it, because up until that point it was like about putting the music together and, you know, internally can I remember all this stuff, you know, but actually in the gig when I was playing and I was looking around at all these people and you're just looking at each other because there's nothing else to look at, the feeling was so intense and it was so alive that I just thought this is magical.
And you think that is unique, not uniquely but partly down to playing for memory, it gives something
massively down to it.
Okay.
I remember doing this like chat to people I met in a pub in the west of Ireland one time before a gig that we were doing, and he was saying, what is it about this group? And I said basically what I said to you, and we were playing by memory, and he was just like, well, what's big about that? That's how you play music, you know. But it's kind of true,
do forget
you know?
that, yeah.
But yeah,
we're the only ones that don't play for memory as classical musicians.
I know, yeah, and it's to our detriment sometimes. Like I think what's good about playing classical music, and sometimes especially if you're doing lots of different things, as I tend to be doing now, is like you have to learn it so quickly, but in a way it's almost in and out before you've really got into it. And I find when you're playing by memory, you're like so much more in depth how you learn
how you relate to the music as well. I feel much more connected to the music when I do it from memory, but I would usually be the kind of person that keep like the sheet music up just in case.
I think that's that's fine.
No, I mean
a wee safety net, you know, but like the way you'll convey it to other people as well is so much more meaningful. You know, I always make a wee analogy to my students when I'm trying to sort of push them off the ledge of, you know, go try this by memory. That like if you went to see somebody acting and they had their lines, you immediately feel less engaged, or you don't believe them as much in their character because they're holding lines, you know.
Very true.
Whereas if they're just delivering it, and I think the same about music, you know, we feel
a very good analogy. This
fear about if we make a mistake, but actually probably the greater fear should be that we're not truly playing the music.
Beautifully put. Yeah, totally agree with that. Two things I want to talk about before we go. What's left? What's on the bucket list for you? What do you want to do musically? It seems like you're just getting up and going here with the last 10 years, everything's happening, but is there anything you really want to achieve? Anything you thought, I'd love to get that? Or any targets with Hard Rain maybe as well?
Well, yeah, I mean, I feel like with Hard Rain, we're kind of on the brink of doing more stuff internationally. There's things in planning at the moment, you know, for 2 and 3 years ahead, and I think that's a really exciting time. Primarily our focus is here and what we do in Belfast, but you know, I feel like for the composers here and for music here, like to have that exposure internationally would be a big thing for us. So there's kind of that side to it. For me personally, like I've just recorded a new album, so I'm going to be releasing that fairly soon. Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, solo flute album. So
just solo flute.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Can you tell us what's on it?
Sure. Yeah. So I've got a kind of I don't know, how would you say it, like a double side to this thing. So one half of it's Baroque music on my wooden flute, which is the Marin Murray variations.
I know it well,
Yeah, and the solo Bach partita. And then the other half is contemporary music on my other flute, actually on multiple flutes, and that's the Steve Reich Vermont counterpoint. Yeah. And great John Buckley's Constellations, which is another huge multiple flute piece.
Okay. And when's that coming out? Have you got a release idea?
I don't really, because I'm making it on vinyl, which takes a little bit longer to make. Okay. So sometime in this winter it'll be.
So is it recorded and all? Yeah.
It's recorded and all, just final sort of little touches.
Wow, is that exclusive then? Have we got an exclusive?
That is an exclusive, I
guess. I needed one. Now they've got one, right? You can go with that.
Yeah.
That's incredible, wow.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
A solo flute record as well, that's a big deal, yeah.
Yeah, it's something I've been wanting to do for a long time. Like, actually, outside the albums you'd mentioned, I had recorded other chamber music albums back in the day, you know, like with quartets and things. And obviously with Hard Rain we have, but I've always played and been interested in solo flute music, so it's been on my consciousness for a while, so I have that to look forward to kind of fairly immediately, and then I have it in mind that sort of follow up to that somewhere down the line as well. But yeah, I don't know much outside of what I'm doing at the moment, because I sort of feel like there's quite a lot of things in my career that I'm
the
lucky
best
to be
answer,
doing. You know, I feel really lucky to be doing things that I love, and I just kind of want to keep doing more of it.
That's 100% the best answer. Yeah, thank you. You're going to put all my other guests to shame today with that answer. Last thing, your flute. Tell us about it. So we were talking a little bit about this. You play on a wooden flute.
I do, yes.
Why do you play on a wooden flute?
Well, the sound of it I just think is beautiful. It's so warm and so focused, and there's a depth to it which I just really love. The responsiveness of it is slightly different to the metal flutes, and I was on tour one time actually with my duo, flute and guitar duo, in the States, and when I played at a festival in Boston, there were a lot of the flute makers there, obviously, because it's Boston. And so somebody came from Brannan to the concert, and instead of recommending to me to go and buy a Brannan flute, she said, you know, I think the sound that you use would be really well matched to wooden flutes. There's some great makers here. So basically I went after the concert and started trying some, and I met Chris Abell, who made that flute, and I just fell in love with it straight away. So I came back home and I discovered that Bill Dowdle, who was principal in the National Symphony Orchestra, also had one of these flutes, so I was able to kind of go and try it a wee bit more.
Oh, does he play on a Chris Abell as well?
He does, yeah.
I know he has a wooden flute, I didn't know it was an Abell. There you go.
Yeah, so that gave me a wee bit more chance to try it out. You know, sometimes it's hard at like a flute festival and there's other sounds and you feel a wee bit, under scrutiny, don't you? Sometimes
I hate doing that, yeah. I hate testing out a flute in front of other flutists.
Oh, it's wild. You know, all you can think about is like,
what am I going to play? How am I going to,
But no, so I was able to, thankfully, it was very kind of Bill, he loaned me his flute to go away and try for a bit, and I got to just get to grips with it a wee bit more, and I decided basically, so Chris made that flute for me, and then I met him in Paris when it was made, and I tried loads of different head joints for it actually at the time, because there were different ones, different shapes that he made. So yeah, it was a wee process, and I've loved it. It's a gorgeous instrument. So I mentioned to you before, like I don't use it for everything because it takes a bit longer to warm up.
Okay.
The sound, it's worth it when you do, but I find sometimes when I'm quickly going to something and I just need my flute to be responsive like immediately, that my silver flute is easier.
Okay.
It's also, the silver flute's a bit lighter as well, so sometimes when you're playing like really, really fast music, it feels just slightly easier under the fingers to have a lighter
instrument. So it's not a question
instrument.
of repertoire, for example, because I know a lot of people prefer to play Baroque music and classical music on the wooden flute and then switch to metal for anything after that. It wouldn't be that for you?
No, it wouldn't. I can play anything on either, to be honest. You know, it doesn't really matter. I do, like, I remember somebody, after I played a concert, when I had this flute, responding to my recital album that you mentioned, saying, oh, that Bach is so beautiful because it's on your wooden flute. And I was like, well, it wasn't actually, because I didn't have it at the time when I recorded
there you
that.
are,
You know,
really?
but I think I was just trying to go for that kind of sound. You know, I think I was drawn to that. And that is kind of what appeals to me a bit, you know, and it's funny because you kind of, finances dictate that you have to make choices along the way. Like, we can't all have all of the flutes, you know.
Of course not, yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
But I feel like there's something in my character or my way of playing that's represented really well, or it responds the way I want it to.
It's a beautiful,
you know?
it looks gorgeous sitting there as well. Offset G, B-foot joint, was that a choice? Well, I suppose the B-foot joint for you with contemporary music is you'll use it.
Yeah, the offset G, I did play Inline when I was at college, and then when I bought my silver flute after, I think I was just kind of coming around to the feeling that the offset was just slightly easier. And I think it was Robert Dick I'd spoken to actually in a masterclass one time, who said, like,
the offset G,
isn't it, you know, he was promoting it to the max, but he was sort of saying, like, you can't hear any difference, and like, obviously you can't hear any difference. Well, I can't hear any difference.
No, I don't think you
offset
hear
or
a
anything.
difference.
It's just a comfort thing, and I have quite small hands, so I think when I was buying my silver flute, I just thought, you know what, this is just going to be easier for me, and it was. And the B foot, you know, I don't actually have a B foot all the time on my silver flute. I have a spare B foot joint that I just put on when I'm using it. I find it slightly heavy at times. I think with this one, because it's a heavy flute,
it's a bit awkward,
anyway, it doesn't really really matter, but it's good to have the option. But yeah.
And what kind of silver flute do you play?
I play an Altus silver flute with a Lafin head joint.
Ah, lovely. Wow, okay. Do you ever think you'll change your flute?
I don't think I'll ever sell that flute because I love it, but I would kind of be interested maybe to try other flutes again. For a long time I just sort of felt like that's it, but I'm kind of starting to come around to thinking maybe at some point I might see it. It's partly as well because I've been playing that flute constantly now for, I guess I left music college in 2004.
Okay.
So, nearly 20 years really of like playing intensively. It's, there's a bit of wear and tear there.
I'd imagine, yeah.
I love the flute, but I feel like I might need to get another at some point.
Okay.
Just mainly for that reason, yeah.
Yeah, curious. I think we're nearly done, to be honest. We've talked for well over an hour, which is great.
There's no end to my nerdiness.
Yeah, it's great. I know I could do another few hours, but I'll not subject you to that. Is there anything you want to plug? Is there anything you want to advertise while you're here? My listeners are very dedicated. They'll go check it all out.
Do they? Yes.
Oh yes.
I think I've almost sold everything I can at your listeners.
Well, you're both on. You've got 2 records on Spotify. That much I know.
I do. Yes. Some of the other chamber recordings I made back in the day didn't survive the fall of the record company. So that's okay. Something that happens. So there's a few lucky people in the world that still have the so
people go on the hunt for them then maybe as well.
They're really nice actually. It's a shame they're not, because the one was the Histoire de Tango, which is beautiful.
I saw that, yeah. I got a list from what was the name of the record label? North something Records, wasn't it?
Natural Studio
Records, yeah. And they had a list of their entire catalogue that and
the Standing Stones one, which was all Irish and Scottish music, was gorgeous, but
well, if anyone finds a copy of that, then
I know
there you are.
It's worth
keep your eyes out. And you have a website, obviously. I'm assuming you keep that up to date with your gigs and what's coming up.
I am dreadful at keeping that up to date, Gareth, because I am so busy all the time.
Where can people find you then if they want to see live? If they want to see what's going on with you, do they just go on the Hard Rain and see what's in there?
For Hard Rain, it's all there for me. I'm kind of popping up here and there everywhere at the minute. I've been really busy since I moved back to Ireland with the orchestras as well, and I'm playing with another orchestra tomorrow here, and also with Belfast Ensemble next week. So there's a lot of wee things that I'm doing here that I just don't get around to putting up, which is kind of terrible.
Well, what you're saying is if there's an orchestra playing in Ireland, you're probably there.
Well, I might
That's
be.
it. Yeah, there's a 50-50 chance anyway. Well, I think we're done there then. We're going to go. I've got to go and record another few people and get another pint. So this was great. Thank you very, very much for coming on. It was an absolute pleasure. And yeah, everyone go check out. I'll leave a load of things in the description as well. There'll be links and stuff in there, and you can check it all out there.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.